All right, let's talk about React Native. All right, so something very exciting. If you already know React JS, you're well on your way of knowing already React Native. It's very, very exciting. So you can bring everything you've learned with React JS to bear and create mobile applications, native mobile applications. It's basically all the things that we've learned about Redux and state management and components and breaking it up the way we've been breaking it up. All that stays the same. Retrieving data from a server, and all that stays the same, right? The biggest change will be that instead of using a DOM, there is no DOM, right? There is no HTML. All the dynamic content that we're generating, instead of dynamically generating H1s and divs and input fields, right? Instead, they're going to be replaced by equivalents, right? Elements that are specifically designed for a particular native mobile, right? There's a library of elements that we're going to be using. That they're the base elements that are the same for all mobile application frameworks. But there's some that are specific to Android or specific to iOS. If you want to target some very specific behavior for those particular platforms, right? So we'll take a look at some of the common ones and some of the more popular libraries that will allow us to easily use a lot of the widgets that are available to quickly build something that looks professional, looks nice on any platform. Okay. All right. So first of all, you'll need to make sure you have the latest Node version. It's always a good idea to have a Node version manager. There's a couple of them out there, NVM or N. There's one nice tool that allows you to manage multiple versions of Node. If you're working perhaps in an industry, you might need to have multiple versions of several platforms going on. So if you have an older version of Node, maybe you've used it in previous courses, I suggest you upgrade to the latest one. So for instance, one of the Node version managers is just N, right? That's one of them. But certainly there's quite a few, but this is one of them. If you say sudo n stable, it'll upgrade your Node to the latest stable version of Node, and then you can switch around on the versions of Node. Also, a lot of the information that we're going to go over is available in Facebook's native React Native guide. Right? I welcome you to go over the documentation on there, how to get started. Also, if you're on Mac, you'll need to install the latest XCode, including the command line tools. Right? The Node tool that we're going to be using uses many of the Xcode command lines and tools that are installed there. So yes, make sure you have the latest Xcode. And just like we were using Create React App tool, we're going to be using an equivalent one, right? That's called Create React Native App. Okay? This creates a boilerplate starting application that's it's already running a hello world, right? Just with a few lines of code, and that's a great place to start with, right? So install that as a global command line interface, so you can create brand new React Native apps. Right. You'll also want to install Watchman. The project that Create React Native app generates, that project uses Watchman to keep track on any changes on your files and to recompile them, right, to their native equivalent. Right? And even though the documentation doesn't stress the fact that you need Watchman, I couldn't get it to work any other way. Right? So you need Watchman on your system. So from a Mac, it's easy. You make sure you have Brew updated, and then you can install Watchman. Right? There's instructions on how to do this also on Windows, right? On the getting started. So you'll need Watchman running on your machine. All right. So to create a new application, you just write create React Native app, and then the name of the project, right? And very much like we did for React JS, you just create the application, you CD into it, and you can start running the application by saying npm start, right? But the difference here is that it won't open up a browser, right? This is not running on a browser, right? It needs to either run on your actual phone, right, or it needs to run on a simulator on your machine. Okay, so when this will start, it will create an application which is compatible with a tool called Expo. Right? Expo is a you should install it, download it from your store, from your phones, your particular Android or iOS. And what it'll allow you to do is when you run the npm start, right, it'll post a QR code, right? That's from your phone. You can point it to it, right? And it will download to your phone, and it will start running on your local phone. Okay. Expo you'll need to download and install on your particular phones, which is pretty cool. Or you can also run it on your local simulator, right? Either the Android simulator or the iOS simulator. For that, you'll need to install an additional tool, right? It's the React Native command line interface. Right? This will allow you to start running it, running Android or running the iOS simulator right on your machine. Okay. So you need to install the React Native CLI. Once you have the React Native CLI, you can either say run. You can say React Native run iOS or run Android. Okay, and that will start up the simulator for your particular framework. Okay, on iOS you have to be on a Mac. Right? For Android, you can be on either one, but you'll need to install Android App Studio to have the simulator for Android on your Mac. You can also provide a particular phone that you want to run the simulator. I believe on iOS the default is the iPhone X is the default. But you can point to different versions. You can, for instance, you can point to iPhone 6s, right? So start up the simulator on that particular version. So let's try it out. Let's see. So let's go to webdev, and what do we have here? So let's go into lectures. Let's create here. Create a React Native app, and here we'll be creating a as we go along. We'll be creating a widget list editor, which I already had created here. Well, no, actually, this will be an exam, right? So it'll be a simple exam. Editor, how's that? And this will be native editor. Right, so that will create my my React Native application. Then we can go in there and then try it out. And that'll take a while. Meanwhile, we can start opening it with our favorite IDE. We'll say open. We'll go to webdev and lectures and native editor. It's this one right here. Let's say open. Actually, do I want to open it still? Because last time, if I opened it too early, it didn't know what the type of project. Okay, maybe this is done. Okay, I opened it up. All right, so we can go in there and say simple exam native editor, and we can do an npm start. And npm start will start a little server that will allow you to download your app on the phone. They have to be on the same Wi-Fi network, right? The same network for this to work. And this is our QR code, right? That you can measure. You can just point to it, or you can say to I want to send a URL. Let's see, open Android device. S send, or I can send it, or I can send it open up on the iOS simulator. And it'll start the simulator locally on my machine here. You see that? Oh, it's very dark. There it is. So it'll compile down to the native phone. Notice it's starting up Expo. And it's compiling and building the JavaScript bundle and converting it to its native representation. And it'll kick off the application in a second. Meanwhile, while that's happening, we can take a look at what should render. And what should render is we can look at the content. Basically, it'll render whatever's in app.js. So in app.js, you'll notice that the content, there it is, right? It says open up app.js to start working. And indeed, it's this content over here. Okay, there's the base, there's the entry point to your application. Right? There it is. It's import React from React. We know that already. The only thing that's a bit different here is that notice that it's loading from React Native, React-Native. See that? So that's brand new. And what's loading here is a couple of components, right? The text component, the view component. This is what's going to replace, right, all the DOM elements that we've been creating so far. Right? So instead of div and h1 and all that, right, we'll instead use equivalent text and view and all those alternatives. So there it is. So it says export default class app extends React.component, and notice the render function that we're already familiar with, the return function that we're already familiar with. Here's the view, right? And notice the content here is open up. It's this content over here, and we can just replace that. If we replace that and say, we just say hello world, and we save it, it recompiles everything on the fly, and it changes on the phone. Okay, right? And if instead you're pointing to the you're pointing with your own phone, it'll recompile and re-update on your physical device. So you have a nice development environment that you can see exactly what you're working on. That make sense? All right, so that's just getting started on a very, very simple app. Awesome.